I have been asked a few times if building a business is hard, and my answer is no. And the reason why is if you've worked in the same space that I'm in, if you've worked in transportation and logistics, you've probably worked as a freight broker somewhere. And when you go from being a freight broker to opening up your own freight brokerage, you still just act as a freight broker. So it's the same exact thing that I was doing. I just didn't have a salary to it. So the days, regardless of if I owned it or if I didn't own it, the day was the same. So it's not hard per se. It's not any harder than it was when I was working underneath somebody's umbrella. In fact, became a little bit easier because I was allowed to do things in my own pace and in my own way. And I got to set the guidelines for how I wanted to treat others, how I wanted to treat carriers, how I wanted to speak with prospects and customers, because I have a fine line where I won't be disrespected by a prospect. So if I call somebody and they say, "Oh, we could do the same thing as you can. You're really not necessary," or whatever, I'll be like, "You're really not necessary." In fact, I have a whole book of customers that are already working with me. And if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. But we are necessary because you use brokers, don't you? And then they'll say something along the lines of, "Yeah, we do." And I go, "Yeah, that's because we can aggregate trucking costs. So where you might have to go out and source one truck one time, we have a list of carriers who's probably in your area pretty often doing the same exact lanes. So we can probably get it for better, but you think that you know better than us. So you know what? How about you tell me what you get it at? And if it's laughable, I'm going to laugh at it. And if I could beat it, or if I can't beat it, I'll just let you know." And then they usually tell me, and it turns out that I can usually laugh at whatever rate that they're getting. And then I go, "That's cute." And then I usually just go, "Best of luck with that." And then I get off the phone. But there is a level of disrespect that I don't particularly enjoy taking, and that comes from prospects. I don't enjoy it from carriers either, but I'm more willing to do it from carriers because they're my vendors and I need them. I don't particularly need customers at all. At least the prospects that I'm calling on. I need customers. Obviously, I need cash flow. I need money coming in, but I don't need disrespect, and I don't need customers who don't think that what I bring to the table is valuable, because it is valuable. So when it comes to customers who are like, "Adam, I just need you to be at like 1, 2%, or you can't really make that much margin off of us." I just go, "Oh, let me stop you right there then. If there's no margin in it for me, then there's no reason for me to be here because I am not a for profit. I'm a for profit business. I'm not a charity. I'm not here to do work for you and not make any money for it. I'm not here to provide you a service and not make any money for it." And it's the same thing with customers who only value it as getting it picked up and getting it delivered. If you just want the cost of the transportation, go find the carrier yourself and don't do the work that I do. And that's how I feel about it. So when a customer comes to me and they say, "We go at the lowest cost," I go, "Okay, I'll quote it for you. I'm not going to be your lowest cost, but when you decide that lowest cost is not actually the best option for your business, I will still be here in the background. But until then, I'm not going to help you with any consultation. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. If you're not going to be willing to pay me any type of money to move freight for you, I'm not really going to be here to offer you free consultation and service unless it's to change your mind. But then when the time comes, I'm capitalizing on it 100% if you're going to make me wait until it's a harder time to then create a carrier network for you." And there are prospects who will come to me months and a year later, and I could have built them carrier network at great rates and pre-negotiated everything so that they wouldn't have to be at extremely high costs. But instead they waited too long and now the market has changed. And because of that, their rates are now higher than they would have been, even utilizing the same carriers that I would have gone through in the first place. And it's sad, but it's also not entirely sad. I completely understand it when someone thinks that everything is commoditized, when the market shifts backwards and then control goes from those who are shipping products to those who actually move it and the rates skyrocket. I can't even start to feel bad for those who just drove rates down because they're just treating you the exact way that you treated them. It's just the reverse of it. So I can't even begin to feel bad about it. But other than that, I don't believe it's very hard. I think being in business for yourself is actually one of the easiest things that you can do. I don't believe with the sentiment that business is supposed to be hard. I don't think that anything in life is supposed to be hard. Therefore, I just don't believe in that. Nothing is supposed to be hard. Being in business does not necessarily mean that it's going to be difficult for you to be in business. Nothing has to be some way. There are ways of making being in your own business and being a company owner. There are ways of making it easy for yourself. And it's just to create systems and then work the system. And it's not to get too overly involved emotionally. Of course, you're going to be because it's your business, it's your baby, and your life is pretty much on the line when you're creating it and they're in these earlier stages. I'm in year 2 and every day still feels like it could be an emotional swing. You just have to keep your head down. Don't get too high on the highs. Don't get too low in the lows. Just work the system that you've created and soon the system will pay for itself. That's pretty much all you have to do. So it's not hard to be a business owner, especially in these earlier stages. It would be more difficult and it would probably weigh on me far more if I had more employees and I had more customers and I had more vendors and I had to look out for all of these people. But as it stands, no, it is not hard to be in your own business. It is not hard to run your own business. I think it's actually the easiest thing that I've ever done. It's obviously the hardest choice that I ever made, but once I made the choice and just jumped into it, it's the easiest thing I've ever done.